We wanted to try as much as possible in our show to honor all gamers' experiences and all the choices they might make as they play the game. So we always wanted to avoid trying to make one canonical ending the ending that led to the events of the show.
Why would my dad go to Las Vegas?
Hey, I'm Jim Vavida with IGN. I am joined today by executive producer, creator, and showrunner Geneva Robertson-Dworet and executive producer Jonathan Nolan. Thank you so much for joining IGN today. We have a lot to talk about, so we'll just dive right in. There's been a lot of chatter among gamers about how Fallout Season 2 will have to kind of make one of the endings of the New Vegas game canon, since the show itself is canon. Can you say which ending from the game you went with and what the decision was?
Our show is set 15 years after the events of New Vegas. And we wanted to try our best always. This was a really early decision that Graham and Jonah and I made together, was that we wanted to try as much as possible in our show to honor all gamers' experiences and all the choices they might make as they play the game. So we always wanted to avoid trying to make one canonical ending the ending that led to the events of the show.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that settles that.
That delicious idea that at the end of a conflict, 15 years down the line, every faction might think they won, which I think is, it's got a bit of a poetic quality to it as well.
Absolutely. It's like, the story of history, it depends on who you ask. That was the idea.
Okay, that's interesting. I was expecting you to say, we're not going to answer that. So
I mean, if you held us to it, yes, ma'am, obviously.
One of the ongoing themes this season, at least in the first 5 episodes I've not seen the entire season yet, is that characters either trying to hold on to their humanity or possibly trying to reclaim it after doing some bad things. So can you speak to that in regards to the respective journeys of Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul?
Absolutely. Lucy left the vault in season 1, a relatively naive, self-righteous, and very moralistic person. She had some pretty brutal experiences on the wasteland. She had a very nasty mercy kill at the end of the first season that really broke her heart. And she's coming out of those experiences trying to search for her father, who's done some very, very bad things. And the question is, what moral boundaries is she willing to cross in order to bring him to justice? And what does it even mean to bring someone to justice on the wasteland where there's not exactly a jury of your peers around? Very excited for where her story takes her, especially since the person she's traveling with is the Ghoul, who is willing to do anything to get what he wants out of the world and to pursue his family, and thinks that anything is worth doing in order to find his family again after all these years of searching. And so the question is, will she rub off on him or will he rub off on her? And then Maximus is in the Brotherhood of Steel, and that is, he's finally living his dream from season 1 when we met Max in Jonah's episode, season 1. He dreamed of becoming a knight and wearing the power armor. Now he's there, but in the meantime, he's kind of realized that the Brotherhood of Steel is a highly militaristic organization. Obviously, that's kind of its whole idea, and there are some moral downsides to the fact that it reckons with problems with violence. And so he's trying to navigate, how do I stay a good person while being part of this organization? So those are the three stories.
Season 1 ends with the Brotherhood defeating the NCR at Griffith Observatory and gaining control of the cold fusion reactor. So how does that acquisition affect the Brotherhood in its many chapters this season, and especially the relationship between Quintus and Maximus?
I think so much of season 2 is about escalation, right? You have higher stakes, you have more players at the table, you have different factions. I think it's one of the things I love best about Fallout New Vegas was the incredibly memorable factions that you have, and the sense that you're not quite sure who should win. And that applies to the Brotherhood as well. I think, Max has had this idea of what the Brotherhood is that's quite limited, and is now being exposed to the idea that it's not just his little chapter, called the Knights of San Fernando, that is the extent of what that organization is. There are other chapters with other interpretations of what the Brotherhood should stand for, the Codex, and all these sorts of things. And then, of course, you have the Commonwealth out there somewhere as well. So bringing and playing with the larger canon of the games with this sense that the scope and scale of these factions is kind of beyond what any individual could necessarily wrestle with. I think is and what they should do and what Mac should do when confronted with that, I think is one of the fun questions of the season.
Let's stay on the topic of the factions, because that is one of the really fun things we discovered this season. Let's talk about Kaiser's Legion and the casting of Macaulay Culkin as one of them. How much of a role can fans expect the Legion to play this season? And talk about maybe casting Macaulay Culkin, of all people, somebody you wouldn't normally peg as a legionnaire in a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Sure. I mean, I saw Home Alone, I think, like 5 times in theaters when I was a kid. So the image I have of Macaulay sort of imprinted in my mind is as this incredibly sweet little boy. So it was very fun to think about putting him into the Legion, which is, of course, one of the most brutal organizations in Fallout. And, Mac had this incredible idea, sort of take on the character that was very patrician, very intellectual, very thoughtful. What I liked about that was that one of the surprises when you play the game is that Kaiser is actually quite a thoughtful guy, even though he is so brutal and he runs such a up organization. They're a bunch of slavers, and yet as you talk to him, you're like, oh, this is one of the more intellectual people I've met on the wasteland in this game. Like, this is sort of I'm very uncomfortable with that, the fact that this dichotomy. But I like that Mac brought that to the part as well. So I thought that was a nice way of honoring that element of the game.
I could see Kevin McAllister surviving in the wasteland. He'd jury rig something.
Yeah, bootstrapped,
right. And then we also see I believe it's episode 4, and I love this sequence because I'm a huge Elvis fan. So all those Elvis ghouls, are they supposed to be the King's characters from the game, but now they've turned into ghouls? That is them?
Yeah, it hasn't worked out very well for the Kings, at least some of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the extent that we'll see of them. Is just.
Well, I think one of the ideas, one of the fun ideas, is that with all the factions, whether it's the Legion or the NCR or the Kings, is that in any version of the ending, there'd be some rebuilding to be done, right? Whoever won, whoever lost, all these factions would be in rebuilding mode. And the sort of sanctity of Vegas, this place that House very carefully protected, has been, for reasons we'll come to understand in the season, has been removed or violated, which means that the folks who were in the game, safe and sound, have had some hard times.
Well, I think given his love of guns, I think Elvis would have gotten a kick out of that sequence. So let's get into sort of the Coop and the Ghoul. How much of his arc had been kind of planned out ahead of time? Like when you were doing season 1, did you know that where he was going to go in season 2? And I mean, him and Barb's relationship in season 2, or is that something you kind of mapped out when you just started doing the writer's room?
Very difficult question to ask a television producer. Did you map these things out? The answer always has to be, of course. Of course it was mapped out.
But yes. Okay, now that he said the answer is of course, but just yes, we did know. I mean, we've been talking about from the beginning where we ultimately want this to go, and even Todd is aware of kind of we've pitched him sort of ideas on where we're hoping to ultimately take the Ghoul story in the final season. So it's a group effort.
Yeah, I think that the fun of any show is you have to start out, and Geneva and Graham started out with this beautiful blueprint for where our story could go. You have to have the responsibility of saying how it's going to end, but then based on the success of the show, and I think the real art of it is being open to and open-minded enough about the stops along the way, right? When you start working with a particularly gifted actor or a storyline just kind of pulls you in a different direction, be open to the fact. So you can't be, relentless when it comes to having this programmatic diagram of it. It's not like a movie in that way. And that's, to me, the joy of television.
So do you see the Ghouls, I guess, Coop's backstory continuing, or should we expect at some point that like all the mysteries of the past will be resolved and the story will just be firmly in the present at any point? Or
That's something we're continuing to talk about. There's so many things we'd like to delve into in the past storyline. There's so much fun to be had pre-war and explore. So I'm tempted to kind of keep playing with it forever, but we'll see if it feels like it wears out its welcome. But I've always liked that dichotomy between the Ghoul and Coop, of course, but also just seeing what these companies were up to before the war. I think it's one of the most interesting things about the canon, and getting to bring that to life is really exciting.
So the trailer reveals that Justin Theroux is Robert House, but the show itself doesn't really confirm that until episode 5. Was there any concern with that trailer confirming that he's Robert House, that, oh, we're spoiling it? Or were you like, who are we kidding? Everyone can figure out that he's Robert House.
I think the fun of it is the elegant way in which a character like House in particular is so, and he's one of my favorite characters from the games because he's so complicated. He's so broken and mistrustful and so smart. Obviously thinly veiled version of Howard Hughes, who himself is a fascinating character. And so it felt like, that character always had to be one step ahead of everyone else. And I think for me, the fun of getting to know House a little bit better, because we've already met a version of House in the first season, is exactly how that particular clock ticks.
It's funny you say Howard Hughes. It just clicked with me that your brother Chris was trying to do a Howard Hughes movies for years, and you kind of
best scripts I ever read.
Well, you kind of beat him to the punch then, doing a Howard Hughes thing. So I don't know. Season 2 takes place after the events of Fallout New Vegas, many years later. But design-wise, what elements of the New Vegas location did you want to keep similar, and what aspects needed to change to kind of reflect the passage of time?
Well, I mean, we knew the Strip was, it's obviously a very sacred kind of location. You really feel like you're almost going into the heart of the game when you reach the Strip. And so it was really unbelievable to see what our production designer, Howard Cummings, pulled off. We took over an abandoned shopping mall and built there, and the scale of it was just phenomenal. So that was really exciting to see come to life. Freeside was also unbelievable, also because it's shot on the same street that Westworld was shot on, and Deadwood. So just seeing that transformed at a place that's had so much TV history for me as a fan, as well as now making a show there, was really, really exciting.
That's cool. I didn't know that was the same location.
Yeah.
I wanted to also ask though about the Deathclaws, because we're going to be debuting a clip from the show featuring the Deathclaws. Mm-hmm. Obviously, fans have been waiting to see these brought to life. Can you talk about how you did that? I understand there was some practical effects involved, and if that was the case, how did you actually have to tweak the design of them from the game to kind of fit a practical kind of execution?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like Jonah should answer this, because this is really, we were continuing a methodology that he pioneered season 1 of really doing things practically so they felt tactile and real in our show.
It's always an interplay of some of the creatures, or as practical as we can get them, and it's a balancing match or maybe a wrestling match between our practical effects, special effects teams, and our visual effects teams headed up by Jay Worth, who is incredible. I've worked with for 15 years, and we always endeavor to give Jay as little to do as possible. With the Deathclaw, we took a kind of a hybrid approach where we tasked Legacy, who's the vendor who had built a power armor for us for the first season and a new version of it for the second season, which we're very excited about. But knowing from the beginning that we wouldn't be able to do something on the scale of the Deathclaw from the game unless it was a hybrid approach, meaning we're going to build the head, the face, the claws, some of the key aspects of it, and have it puppeteered on our set to give as much reality to it as possible and as much reality for our actors to react with. And so it's actually a very faithful version of the Deathclaw from Fallout 4. And in fact, the designer of the Deathclaw has commented on that, which we're delighted to see, the faithfulness with which we came at it. So little tweaks here and there. In question of the horns, the horns signify a different station within the family of Deathclaws. We were careful with the approach there. And then the wizards at ILM came along to help complete the vision of the Deathclaw on our set. So it was really a team effort.
Oh yeah, bringing in ILM too. I mean, it kind of brings it almost like a Jurassic Park full circle, because I remember them using the giant T-Rex heads and all that. So that really has to, for Walton and Ella must have been really helpful in that particular sequence to actually not stare at a tennis ball, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, our puppets are genuinely frightening. Jonah and I were talking about it. When we first saw the Radscorp, like, charging full speed, like, I ducked out of the way. It was really scary.
You got to bring that to Comic-Con and just scare the hell out of them. Speaking of the Deathclaws, can fans expect maybe to see talking intelligent Deathclaws at some point, or perhaps in backstory, or any of the sympathetic tamed ones?
I mean, nothing's off the table. The intelligent Deathclaws are obviously favorites, and I find though all the Deathclaws sympathetic, just because their creation is a human influenced thing. It wasn't something they asked for. They're not just a product of natural evolution. This is the fault of human error and human hubris. So I feel like they're even if they're attacking you, it's kind of your own fault in a way.
Can you talk about casting Kumail Nanjiani and what his character represents?
Well, we just felt like he was the perfect actor for our show in that he can do drama, he can do comedy, and he can do that pivot between them on a dime, which is really important because, we've always talked about how sort of the North Star of adapting Fallout is getting the tone right, which, as anyone knows who's played the games, it's about that incredible blend of comedy, drama, moral dilemmas, insane violence. So Kumail, to us, could nail the comedy and the drama, but he also, we thought, was someone who has so much charisma that, the idea of his character is when he shows up, Max is kind of like, oh, this is what I've always been looking for in the Brotherhood. Like, this is the antithesis of Michael Rappaport. No offense to Michael Rappaport.
I'm sure Michael was offended by that. Yeah, go ahead.
But anyway, Kumail represents sort of the nobler vision of the Brotherhood when he, basically flies his vertibird right into the hangar and jumps out all badass. Like, Max is like, that's what I've been looking for. And so it's very alluring to Max. He's like, maybe I can be a knight like this. Maybe I can join him. And we'll see whether that pans out the way he thought it would.
Yeah, he's got that kind of swashbuckler swag to him when he shows up.
Yeah, Errol Flynn vibes.
Were there any specific moments or aspects of New Vegas that you wanted to specifically kind of riff on? Are there maybe a certain sequence, or I guess you kind of touch on that a little bit with the Kings, but was there anything that fans should be like, they're doing a riff on that moment from the game?
It's so interesting. Well, there's there's hints of sort of discontent a little bit in the Legion, which I thought was really interesting. And I mean, look, they're all the factions that you encounter in New Vegas. I feel like are at war with each other, but like everyone's trying to power grab within the factions, and that felt like so juicy and just sort of hilarious. That there's enemies without and there's enemies within everywhere. You can't trust anyone, and so that was inspirational to us in our approach to certain of the factions. The sense of absurdity in the game as you play it. It's such a funny game. We hope that we captured some of that as well, that absurdity.
When can we expect season 3 to begin production? And when do you think it'll be released? And is there any location or any aspect from the games that you can tease for season 3?
Oh boy. Well, I say with regards to production, we're hoping to be shooting again next summer. We'll see if that all comes together, best laid plans and all. But we have, I'm excited that though the scope of the show feels undiminished season on season, Geneva and Graham and our incredibly talented cast and crew were able to work quickly enough to get back on the air in a reasonable amount of time. I think what's happened with television in terms of taking longer and longer from season to season is kind of an unfortunate trend. So you don't want the show to lose any of its scope, but we know that we like to be back on the air as soon as we can.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see the rest of this season. Thank you all for joining me today. Fallout Season 2 launches on Prime Video December 17th.
I'd ask why my dad ran into a den of monsters, but he'd probably just tell me to shut the fudge up.